Good morning, good day, wherever you are in the world. This is the Running Tales podcast coming to you on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. We're really proud and pleased to be back here again for another fantastic chat. If you haven't listened to the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network before, we're a little network of really quite wonderful podcasts that includes Running Tales, as well as some other superb podcasts, including Beyond the Finish Line with Joe Harden, the Fireside Chats, What's in Your Earbuds, just all kinds of great stuff. Please go and check it all out. And if you love what we do, please give us a positive rating or review wherever you listen and watch this stuff. Because, of course, hopefully you are on Facebook or one of our other social media platforms watching what we're doing now on a Tuesday evening in the UK or wherever you are in the world and whatever time that is. We will also be out as a podcast on Thursday, so check that out as well as the YouTube channel and all the other great things that we do. There's various show notes and stuff that you'll find that will tell you where to go for all of that good stuff. Now, today we've got a fantastic guest. It's the middle-aged running man, for people who know that, or the Marm for short. He runs a YouTube page of that name, which, if you believe what it says, tells you that it's a running channel with a middle-aged man in it running. So it's does whatever it says on the tin type thing. But the brevity of that description hasn't stopped almost 3,500 subscribers from rushing to enjoy the content that Tim Stent, aka the Marm, supplies. It's recently been named as one of the best running channels that you must watch. And to be honest with you, it's just absolutely superb. It's hilariously funny. It's fantastic. So let's get Tim forward now. Let's find out how he became the Marm, the middle-aged running man. And don't say you became middle-aged and started running. I want more of an explanation, Tim.
Well, I did actually become middle-aged and started running. But hi, Craig. How you doing? You all right?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm really excited. This is the very first time I've done something like this, so I'm really excited. But
well, tell us how it all began and why. I think the biggest question is, lots of people have reached middle age and started to run, but not everybody started a YouTube channel to tell everyone all about it.
Well, when I started running, a mate of mine, I hadn't, my wife had, just had our twin girls. So I've got 3 daughters and my youngest 2 twins, obviously. Just had our twin girls, and it was all very hectic at home. And I wasn't going out very much. I was eating quite a lot. And my mate, John, who had recently lost a shed load of weight, which I hated, and I was frankly furious about. I said to him one day, I said, have you managed to shift all that timber? And he said, well, yeah, I've been running. So the one night he came around and called for me, and we went off running. And I'd done little bits and pieces at school. I can remember running at school and being all right. And we went out running. Bit of a struggle to start. I think we did 4 or 5 miles or whatever it was, and I was just running in trainers that I'd found under the stairs and, whatever. And, but really enjoyed it. And I was running with him. We were chatting along. We normally used to catch up and drink beer and all that sort of stuff, but we were chatting along running, and it was great. And one of us then decided, it was him, he was going to raise some money for the Bobby Moore Foundation, I think it was. And he entered the Stratford, it's called the Shakespeare half marathon at the time. Yeah. And he said, right, I'm going to enter this. And I said, oh, well, I'll do it with you. And it was a real leap of faith for both of us. And it's bizarre, actually, now when I think about it, because we've just been talking about the Great Northampton Run that you did at the weekend. And I'll tell you a little bit about what I did at the weekend. But now, entering a half marathon, I don't want this to sound flash in any way, but you kind of do it without thinking. It's kind of like, you can do it.
Yeah.
But at the time, I remember pressing this button and saying, I'm going to do a half marathon, and closing my eyes and thinking to myself, bloody hell, this is... I remember telling people at work, and they were killing themselves laughing, you'll never do it, you run, blah, blah, blah. And as it turned out, our training together became less and less, because John was a less keen runner than me, as it turned out. We started off by running together, and then I ended up just sort of going on secret runs on my own. And then by the time we did the race, I was skullduggerous, to be honest with you, because we started the race and he was sort of tailing off a little bit. And I said, mate, can I go for it? And he went, yeah. And he was just about to say, yeah. And I'd just gone, I left him. and and it was great. And then we finished that race, and then he stopped completely. He was beaten. This is actually true. He was beaten by a guy who'd got a washing machine on his back. He was running this sort of Stratford half marathon. But I did all right. I think I did it in like 1:40 or something, which I was really chuffed with. And then he stopped running, and I kind of just continued. And but not many races. I did, 2 or 3 of my sort of favourite local races every year. And then I don't know, about 3 years ago, and I am a bit hazy on this about the decision about the YouTube channel. I don't really know how that happened, but people had always said, "Oh, you're a good talker. You'd be quite good at sort of, I used to be quite good at doing speeches in the job and all that sort of stuff that I do. But people said, "Oh, you're quite good. You should do like a radio broadcast about running." And literally, just one day, I went out with my phone and just recorded a couple of bits of me chatting as I was running around, edited it together, and literally, I had to learn how to use YouTube. And the early videos are awful. But I remember pressing post thinking, what am I doing here? Because that pressing post for the first time, and I don't know whether any other YouTubers will relate to this, or yourself, Craig, is a real leap of faith, because you are so vulnerable when you press post for that first time, because you're kind of effectively saying, please like me. Please don't be too cruel about what I'm posting. And you're also pretty well saying, I think I've got something to offer here. And it was like, I must admit, that pressing that button, and I did, and I think, I don't know, 10 people watched, I think, my first one to start with. For weeks, I used to keep checking YouTube to see if anyone else had watched or liked it or whatever. Yeah, and then I'm stubborn and just carried on doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100%. I found the same thing. I mean, I used to work at the BBC and in papers before that, so I kind of was forced through my job to put myself out there. But even with that background, once you stick it out there on your own, saying, "Hello, it's me. I'm the one you should watch, not the whole broadcasting corporation of the country that's important. It's just me, and you should come and listen to me wittering on with some other runners who you may or may not have heard of." And so, yeah, you are absolutely just putting yourself out there, hoping that you get that feedback.
Well, I genuinely, I genuinely hadn't watched YouTube. I'd got the YouTube app on my phone, but I'd never really watched it. I used to hear some people say, "I don't watch TV, I only watch YouTube," and I thought, how does that work? And I'd never watched really any other running channel, and I genuinely believed that I would be the only person doing a running channel. Not the only person, but I thought that there'd hardly be anyone doing this.
Yeah.
And once I got into about 2 or 3 weeks and started actually looking, because the algorithm then starts to chuck in, and I realised that everyone's doing it, and yeah, it's a bit of a wake-up call.
Oh, mate! I know exactly how you feel. I mean, we started Running Tales, my wife and I, just at the start of the pandemic, and I was like saying to her, because she runs her own fitness and running business, I was still at the BBC, so she fronted it then rather than me, and I was like, got this great idea. I don't think anyone else is doing it. It's a real niche. We should do a running podcast. And then, like, the whole world is doing running podcasts. I'm now part of a whole network of running podcasts, and it's like, this is nothing unique or amazing, Craig. But hopefully, the idea is to try and put our own stamp on these things. And I don't know, how would you describe your stamp that you put on the Middle Age Running Man channel?
Right. When I went to races, part of it was when I went to races, and I've learned this actually. I've learned to not be quite so judgmental. So I went to races, and everyone seemed to know what they were doing, and everyone had got all the right gear, and I was literally just turning up in sort of baggy shorts, t-shirt, and this awful pair of Nikes that I just bought from Sports Direct. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing, and I felt a little bit a bit of an outsider. And I thought, well, this would be quite funny. I'll just do it from the point of view of some normal bloke who's quite sort of bewildered by everything that he's seen. So I did it in a kind of like a mocking kind of way. And I'm actually not a bad runner. My times are all right. I've certainly, the one thing, I've got better. I'm 48 now, and I've got quicker. This is probably my quickest year. So I'm not a bad runner. But so I started it like that, and I was like, quite sarcastic, taking the mickey a little bit. And when I started doing that, people loved it. Well, people loved it. I'm exaggerating. People seemed to quite like it. Let's tone it down a little bit. People seemed to quite like it, and then you get some of the comments coming in, don't you? I mean, the one thing is you meet some, and you'll know this from your podcast as well.
Yeah.
You do find an audience, and you kind of get to know them a little bit, and they're incredibly loyal, or mine have been, or so I've got people who are still watching now who watched right at the very start, and you generally tend to kind of find a thing, don't you?
Yeah, I think so, and I suppose I've watched a few of your videos. It's as you say, it's a little bit cynical in a light-hearted way, a bit acerbic at times. There's you're sort of gently mock the races that you're in, but then give a genuine opinion at the end. I think that's probably kind of fair to say. And I also you have an on-off relationship with your with your running watch as well, who I think is named after a certain former politician now.
Yeah. Well, it's just I had this watch, and I've always run with a Apple Watch essentially, just because it tuned into my phone. And then I did this Ultra about 6 months ago. I did it's called the Whichaven Way. It was about 40 odd miles, and the watch conked out halfway through. And the people I was running with said, "Oh, my watch conked out." They said, "What have you got?" I said, "Apple Watch." Like, they nearly vomited when I told them what I'd got, and because they were all Garmin people. So I kind of thought, right, okay, so you've got to have something here. And I bought a Garmin watch, Pain 3, so I bought a relatively entry-level watch. And after wearing it 2 or 3 times, it is just, I don't know whether anyone else finds this, it's the nosiest bit of equipment I've ever purchased in my life. It wants to know everything. It's involved in everything, how much I'm sleeping, whether or not my battery's charged, my body battery. Just wants to know about things all the time, and then predicts what time I'm going to go to the shop and all. So I found that the watch was kind of like trying to undermine me and work against me. I did this series of races where it started off by deliberately telling me I was going to go slower than I thought I was, and then it started messing with my mind and saying that I should be going quicker. So we're still together, me and this watch, Gove, but we're kind of we're not necessarily always on speaking terms.
Yeah. So you've mentioned the name of the watch at the end there. Why was it named? Why was it named Gove?
Because he kind of finds things out and then works against you from the inside. You know what I mean? Stuffs in the back. I'm sure he's really nice.
Oh, I think we'll get away with it. Fair comment probably covers pretty much anything we could say about Michael Gove.
Well, to be honest, I think it's fairly factual that he's skullduggerous. To be, I don't think he's ever denied it. But yeah.
And I think the other thing I love about your videos is just that you are really out there being you, and you seem to get on with everybody else who you're meeting. There's normally a chat with a run director or other runners, and you'll be, like you say, you're running pretty good times, and yet you'll suddenly come up against someone who's puffing away doing really well, and you'll have your phone in their face and having a little chat with them.
I mean, I will say, I kind of play up to this thing where I pretend to be a little bit antisocial. And but actually, having said that, when I first started running, I think I had become a little bit antisocial. I mean, I've always had friends and gone out and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know, again, whether anyone else can relate to this. When you start having a family and you start having work commitments and stuff, you tend to go out less and less, and you tend to see really good friends less and less. So I kind of played up to, at the start, this kind of, I'm a bit antisocial, I'll kind of stand at the side thing. But the running community has kind of not let me get away with it too much. The people are amazing. If I go to a race, a lot of people sort of will come over and say, "I really like your video," or "All right, Mom," or whatever it is. And I've loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I love chatting to people. And so when anyone does come over, I'm over nice, because I don't want people to think I'm an idiot. But yeah, I've really, and as I say, the running community are an incredible bunch of people. They are really supportive.
And has the response always been positive, both I guess online, because we know what online can be like, and in person at those races.
By and large, yeah. I mean, yeah, by and large, I haven't been trolled too many times. This one guy, not that long ago, he said something like, I can't even remember what he said. He said something like, I'd said something, and he said in the comments, he put something like, "You sound like you're an inverted snob," and I sent one back saying, "Thank you. Yeah, I think I probably am." He sent me one back saying, "Nothing to be proud of," and I said, "I know. Thanks again." And he said, "Sounds like you're proud of it." "I'm not proud of it, mate. Sounds like you are." "I'm not, but it sounds like," and it was going on and on.
Yeah.
And in the end, I just sent him a little heart emoji. But and that's probably about as bad as it's got. Occasionally, because I work at a school, which I won't name, but occasionally, you get one of the kids at schools, but they can't resist it. If they were really smart, they'd like pose as somebody. They can't resist it. They'll say something like, "All right, sir," and then kind of leave me guessing to see who it is. But
Yeah.
by and large, do you know what? I'm saying this, and if tomorrow I end up getting trolled or I end up getting loads of messages, I'm blaming you, Craig. But
Yeah.
by and large, I haven't had any hassle yet.
And the reaction of people at actual races as well is, I think you've hinted at it, pretty positive as well.
Yeah, it's been really good. I'm lucky enough that and it's kind of caught on. People have come and held banners, like homemade banners. That was kind of a thing a couple of months ago. I'd pretty well always go to a race and somebody would be there with a banner, which was really nice. The trouble is, it's quite difficult sometimes when you're running, particularly if you've got I sometimes wear headphones. It's difficult to hear what everyone's saying, because your own breathing is so amplified, isn't it? But yeah, nearly always from the song, "Oh, Mom, go on, Mom, Mommy," and that, honestly, you wouldn't believe it. That gives you such a little boost. I'm pathetic, but I love it. It's absolutely great.
Does it surprise you at all? Because you talked to earlier about you're putting stuff out there, you don't know whether you're going to get any reaction, you don't know whether anyone will care less about what you're doing. Well, they have, like we mentioned earlier, 3,500 subscribers. Do you think, wow, why are these people watching?
Oh, yeah. Always.
Yeah.
Absolutely always. I mean, I told somebody at work the other day that I was doing this, and they were genuinely like, "Oh, really? And why do they want to speak to you?" I don't really know. No idea. Don't really know, but I'm doing it. So yeah, it does, because when you're recording something, it's only you, only you and your little brain going around. And someone asked me the other day, "Do you write stuff? Like, do you write down what you're going to say?" And genuinely, I don't at all. I've found a little format where I start off by talking in a car, and I generally just say where I'm going, what I think about where I'm going, and a little bit about what's happened during the week. And at the time, it's great because you're in the car and you're on your own, and no one can overhear you, and I can say whatever I like. And so, to answer your question, it absolutely surprises me that anyone would watch the car claptrap and any of the other stuff, actually, to be fair.
Well, they should watch it. You're doing yourself down, because it's very funny, and I really enjoy it and watch it, and I know that a lot of other people do. And I guess, as you say, you don't prepare stuff, but the races, kind of in all their idiosyncratic glory, they always seem to manage to provide stuff, don't they?
Yeah, it's great because you can. There's all sorts of things. You've either run it before. You can talk about your last experience running it.
Yeah.
You can talk about where you are. There's always a bit to talk about, whether it's the city. You can talk about how it's organised. Yeah, I mean, you can talk about the course itself, how many people are going to be running it. And if you're genuinely into it, which I genuinely am, and that's the one thing I don't think I've got quite right. I don't know whether people think I don't know whether it comes across actually how much I really do love running. I mean, I am totally addicted to it. Like, if I could, I'd run every single weekend, and I kind of have filled up this year. And I am really interested in talking about running. I was chatting to a guy at the end of the Kenilworth race. He's another YouTuber, Ryan from Rayleigh Adventures, and we were chatting at the end, and we just ended up chatting for about 10-20 minutes just about trainers. and we were both, well, I'd like to think we both were really into it, but yeah. So I mean, I genuinely, I'm so into running. It's so addictive, and all aspects of it. The only thing that I can't do, or I don't feel as if I can do, is I just don't know enough about it to be convincing. So I, for example, couldn't do a shoe review channel. I couldn't talk about stretches because I don't do any. I couldn't talk about pacing because I don't know anything about pacing. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, actually, I can kind of relate to that, because none of those things I wouldn't be able to talk on the podcast about much of that, which is why I get guests on who either can or know their own sort of area of expertise. And actually, part of what we do anyway is, and I think your channel relates to this in a comes at this sort of thing in a different way. Is looking at the way everyday runners go about their race. It's not necessarily about the elites or your super trainers or your super times or all that sort of stuff, or stretching in the right way and your VO2 max and all that thing, which is, it's all fine and good, but there's a million and one people doing that and runners world doing that and all that stuff. And it's kind of looking at it in a different way and getting, I suppose, to the reality of running, the fun we all have when we're out there. And obviously, as you've sort of hinted to, since that first half marathon, you've done an awful lot of races across every possible distance, really.
Yeah, it's I did an ultra at the weekend, and that's the video I'm kind of working on at the moment. So I did the Century half. Well, it's the Century Way, which is 100 miles, but it's 100 miles over 32 hours. I didn't do the 100 miles. I was originally booked to do it, and I bottled it completely because I kind of had this. I would normally just plow ahead and just do it out of bravado, but I just thought this is a bit of a bridge too far. So I did the halfway, which was, I think it was 47.5 miles. I did that on Saturday, and but partly because I kind of at the start of this year thought, right, I'm going to try and do everything here. I hadn't done a part run before the start of this year. Never done one before. So I've done a lot of running at a lot of different distances. The ultra I did on Saturday, though, was the toughest thing I've ever done.
Right. And what was so hard about that? Just the pure distance of it?
Well, I always believed when people talk about the Cotswolds, I knew there were Cotswold Hills. I'm not completely ignorant. I've been to Bourton on the Water. I've been a tourist.
Yeah.
I didn't realise quite how steep they were. And you kind of, the Century Way path is like, it's quite challenging to walk. And it was really hard. I had a mate running with me, this guy called Phil, who I'd met at a previous ultra that I'd done. We've only ever met twice, and I kind of talked him into doing this with me. But I fell about 8 miles in, and I actually hurt myself quite badly, although I did that thing where I just got straight up and went, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. But I hurt, and as I ran off, I kind of thought, actually, I'm in real trouble here. I'm really hurt myself. I'd got a small cut on my knee, but I just banged my kneecap on this stone, and I was in agony. And every time I moved my knee after that, because there's a lot of swelling to it. But it was just one of those things where I just thought, well, I've persuaded Phil to come. This is my new friend, Phil.
Yeah,
who I was quite keen to impress. I've persuaded him to come to this. I can't, after 8 miles, just turn around and say, sorry, Phil, I've got to go home. So, and I guess adrenaline kind of kicks in, and I kind of ran for quite a big section of it in the end, but we got through it. But it was, so the reason it was the toughest ever was because that's probably the first time I've ever really had like an injury during the race, and kind of carried on.
Yeah, and I suppose that's one of the things that we can all encounter during running. You never know how that race is going to go when you start off, whether you're going to get an injury, you're going to trip over at some point, your shoelaces are going to come on. Who knows? A million and one different things that can happen, particularly the longer and longer that they go on for. Do you kind of think that adversity you face through running has had an effect on the rest of your life?
Yeah, what you mean? Do you mean in terms of sort of like, I don't know, like mental strength, resilience? Is that?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did a video because most of my videos are kind of kick about like nonsense. You know, I just talk rubbish really. I did do a video that I kind of, it was at the start of the year, and I changed the tone slightly, and I just talked about why I was running and sort of benefits and what I got out of it. And people seemed to really like that video. I had quite a lot of really nice comments on that video, just saying, look, I like the stuff that you normally do, but it was really nice to hear you talking like this. And absolutely, like mental health and all that sort of thing. I know we band around that term quite a lot, but running, and I'm always going out every Sunday, and I'll sort of go over things that happen in the week. I either think about my week ahead, as I say, sometimes go over the week before, think about conversations I've had, what I could have said differently, what I could have done better. You know, there are so many things that happen during the week that to go out on a cold Sunday morning and spend an hour and a half and kind of just unravel some of it, just untie some of it in your head sometimes is brilliant. I did a race 2 or 3 weeks ago in Cheltenham. It can work the other way. So I did a race a couple of weeks ago in Cheltenham. It's a Cheltenham half marathon, and it's a really good race. But I was quite stressed at the time. I was going back to work. School holidays had finished. A couple of my kids were starting secondary school. We'd just come back from holiday. We're having the house done, and the house is an absolute mess. Hence why I'm up here. And I just wasn't in the right frame of mind to run the race. And I ran it really quickly, but didn't enjoy it at all, and felt like and felt a couple of times during the race like a bit miserable. And so it can work both ways. But I mean, the benefits of it. I mean, the physical benefits anyway. I've lost a fair bit of weight. But from the mental aspects of it, I couldn't recommend it enough.
And I mean, I've kind of know what you mean with that. I did the Great North Run last year and wasn't in a great place mentally. And I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's just the busiest race now. And I think it's just too busy. It's too crowded. It took me 45 minutes to cross the line. It was a nightmare getting away at the end. And again, I did what at the time was a PB, but I didn't enjoy it. And I'm sorry, folks behind the Great North Run, if you're listening, it's probably unlikely, but if you are, I probably wouldn't do it again because I didn't enjoy it. And that does happen every now and again. And for me, I tend to enjoy the sort of smaller races and niche races a bit more because of that. I don't know if that's something that you've found as well.
I completely agree. I mean, I've never done the ballot for the Great North Run, and I've never entered the ballot. It's just not appealed, but probably just because of getting there. But
yeah,
the one race I do that is busy is the London Landmarks Half Marathon. I love that race, just the setting. But I feel the start of it, I will batter the start of it just to try and get some room. I'm in the front pen and I'm almost sprinting to just get a bit of space at the start. And then once you're away, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I find that bit at the start, I don't feel anxious, but I find it uncomfortable. I don't like that many people to be, you're always worried that someone's going to clip your heels or it's just not a comfortable experience. When I met you at Naseby this year, I love events. I really enjoy those kind of events where there are less people doing it. It feels just that little bit more personal. I've said this to Simon at Go Beyond as well. I think his events are great. He puts a huge amount into them. But yeah, I really enjoy those smaller races. I think they've got a real kind of charm to them. They feel a little bit more intimate. In terms of, I remember I did the 3/4 marathon at Naseby this year, and for so many periods of it, I was kind of like, it was quite freeing. You were kind of in your own space and time. It was great. Really loved it.
Yeah. So that the event for listeners is the Shars and Spars, and they do it over a number of different distances, all the way up to an ultra. But the 3/4 marathon was the first time they've done that, and I think the idea is it's kind of like this bridging distance between a half and a full, because it is an awfully big gap between those two, particularly when you're somewhere like Naseby, which is, well, I think anyway, really hilly, really beautiful, but really hilly and quite tough. to get around. Yeah.
But it's a nice time. I love spring as well for running, and it's always around about May time, I think, that he does it, and it's a really nice spot. But Simon said to me, he said, try because it's a new distance this year, so try the 3/4. I said, why is that, Simon? He said, well, we won't get many people entering that, and you might win, right? And that is all I needed, right? So I thought, right, great, I'm going to win. And then I turned up on the day, and I said, you all right, Simon? He said, yeah, I'm on the phone. And it was talking to someone called Amy Serkis, who was some kind of like ultra champion. I said, all right. I said, she's doing this, is she? I said, yeah. What's she doing? What distance? 3/4. I was like, you're having a laugh, aren't you? You told me that I was going to win this. And you get some international athlete. Fortunately, she was injured. So, like, it was, it worked out. I didn't come first, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I think Amy sort of jogged it because she was injured and won the women's race and came like 3rd or 4th overall.
Well, in my mind, she didn't jog it; she was doing her best. Right, but she clearly did. And but yeah, I was fuming when I found out she was on that start grid. Yeah. She's really nice, by the
way. Just going back into your kind of own running history, I know that after you started out, one thing that you got into was half marathons in particular, to the point where I think you did at least once, if not 2 years in a row, a half marathon every week of the year.
Yeah, I did one every weekend, but only about I can't remember how many were actually official races. Probably not that many. But I did, I kind of, and it was on an app called Runkeeper. I didn't even have Strava, I don't think, at the time.
Yeah, I've heard of that one, yeah.
It's still around, Runkeeper. I've still got my stats on there. I'll never delete it. But yeah, I did one. It was every Sunday morning, same time, every week. And it was pretty well the same route. And it's just addictive behaviour, isn't it? It's just, how the guy I was running with on Saturday, Phil, is running every day. And I said, Phil, you're gonna run tomorrow. This is on Saturday after the. He said, yeah. I said, how far are you gonna do? He said, I don't know, 2 or 3 miles. And of course, at this stage, I couldn't walk. But it is. It's just it's swapping one sort of addiction for another sometimes with these things. But it's a real addiction. It's a real compulsion. And but my wife is kind of it's really good about. I kind of rip her a little bit in some of my videos, but to start with, I think she used to think it was a bit of a pain that I'd go out and be running most weekends sometimes. But as the kids have got older, and I think she now realises that I'd be maybe a bit more mental if I wasn't doing it. So she's really good about it now.
Yeah, if she's anything like my wife is just getting ready for a few hours on the weekend. Can have some themselves.
After a while, they care less, and it's quite suspicious, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, for sure. It's half
longer if you like.
Yeah. Are you going to go and do one of those multi-day events?
Yeah, you can. Go on. Yeah. Found one for you.
Yeah, that's it. Actually signed you up.
Yeah.
Is half marathon your favourite distance? Is that the sweet spot for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I've really enjoyed doing parkruns. Never done a parkrun before until the start of this year, and I was really nervous. In fact, that's my most watched video, and not that many people have watched it. And it's called My First Parkrun, Imaginative. But that video was in January, I think it was, and I'd never done one before then, and it was just stubbornness. It was just because everyone was saying, "What? You've never done a parkrun? You've done a park," and I've never done a parkrun. So I've got into those a little bit, and I do enjoy them. But you're done in sort of 20 minutes or so. You're done. And as you said before, about crowds and things like that, parkruns are a bit of a bun fight at the start, to be honest. Even the quiet ones, there's a lot of people around at the start, and I'm not quite sure yet where parkrun sits for me, because for me everything's a race. But people get quite indignant at parkruns when you start racing, because it's not a race. It is a race. So I've enjoyed parkruns. I haven't really done that many 10Ks, but half marathon is kind of the original race for me. I think I'm best at that. And my times for half marathons, don't seem to translate into my time for marathons. I'm not as good at marathons as I am at halves. I can't quite make them swap over.
It's interesting you say that, actually, because I've kind of got the same thing. I mean, I'm not as quick as you at the half, but everything about my half marathon and my 10K and my 5K time suggests that I should do a sub 4 marathon. I haven't done a sub 4 marathon.
Yeah.
It's something about reaching that 21 mile mark that just seems to knacker the body out completely. And that's even despite the fact that I've now done I've done 50Ks and stuff, and it still doesn't seem to make a difference in terms of trying to run that 26.2 miles fast. It's a long way. So
and for me, I guess I shouldn't really be too surprised, because I don't do anything differently. I don't train differently, I don't eat differently, I don't do anything differently and then expect to get a different result. And I'm kind of like, I guess one of my kind of ambitions is really to try and go sub 3 marathon. And I'm at sort of 13, I don't know, 12, I think it is at the minute. But I'm not sure how I'm going to close that gap. My half marathon, I can really do, but there's no way that I'm going to be able to, you say half marathon and then some. Like, the wheels just seem to fall off for me. But again, that's probably because I'm not doing anything differently at all, and probably need to.
Yeah, is there a training plan for what you do? Or, I mean, you mentioned earlier about like not really stretching. I don't know.
No. And part of that is just for sheer stubbornness and comedy, and part of that is just weird superstition. I've never. I used to do, into my earlier videos, and I still do it now every now and again if I can find someone. I do a stupid warm up, like with river dance a little bit. But other than that, not really. And I sort of stand with people who are doing it, and I just kind of stick my leg out a little bit and try and pretend I look like I know what I'm doing. It's probably about as much as I do. My warm up is usually just walking from the car to the start, and like, touch wood, I'm going to say it hasn't had any impact, but it kind of has, because my knees are absolutely knackered. It takes me days to recover. But again, why do anything? If it's not broke, don't fix it, But I probably should learn.
I think there's an interesting thing about, I don't know if this is just me, but I think there's an interesting thing around running when it's recreational and fun and you're out enjoying it. And of course you want to do as well as you can do. But I think for me anyway, sometimes I'm like, I look and I go, well, I could do more strength training. I could use a roller. I could stretch a bit better. I could set out a plan. And I'm like,
it's boring.
Now I'm no longer enjoying this.
It's boring. And and you're kind of trying to protect the thing that you like. I get that. Because I try and protect the things that I really like about running. And I think, well, if I start doing all this stuff that I don't like doing, it's just going to ruin running. But equally, I touch wood, apart from a little stumble at the weekend, I haven't had any really awful sort of injuries that have kept me out of running for the last decade. I'm not saying that won't happen. And when it does, I'll probably then start thinking, you're an idiot. You need to start doing things differently. You need to start doing this and that. At the moment, it doesn't feel like I've got to. But I would imagine the time will come where I'm probably going to need to, if I want to carry on running, which of course I do.
I mean, I would definitely say to anyone listening to this, please don't. Your big takeaway shouldn't be, oh, listen to Craig and Tim. They keep running and they're not even training or warming up or stretching or eating properly, and they're okay. Folks, do all those things. They will make you a better runner and they will keep you healthier. But try and enjoy them all as well. I think that's the trick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are there any other big races coming up at the moment? What's next on the list?
Well, I've got I booked like a madman at the start of the year, so I've got quite a few coming up now. I've got the Robin Hood half marathon in a couple of weeks, but that one, when I finished the race on Saturday, I thought, right, if I'm going to have to sacrifice one, it might have to be that. Because at the moment, as I say, I'm struggling to walk the dogs without sort of, walking bow-legged down the street. It'll pass, But that, I don't know, it's touch and go with that one. But after that, I've got the Ulster 10K, which I'm really keen to do. I did that last year, loved it. And as I say, don't run many 10Ks at all. Quite like the distance, I think, although again, it's a bit explosive, isn't it? 10K sometimes, you know, you kind of, a lot of people do them. I'm not that good at them, but yeah, so I love that one. It's in Ulster, beautiful town, and a really popular race. I really enjoy that. And then Oxford after that, the week after, which I've run, which is probably one of my OG races. It's one of the ones that I kind of started with, and I've kind of done that every year since, I don't know, 2016, something like that, I think. So I've got that one. I love that race, but again, loads of people, and so battering off at the start is really, really important. But it's a great race. I love that. Yeah, and then just odds and ends really. The Yorkshire Marathon, I think, after that, and a couple of little trail things in the woods, and the Broadway Half Marathon as well. Love the Broadway Half Marathon. If you've ever heard of that one, it's really good.
No, I've not heard. Where's that one?
Well, funnily enough, it's in Broadway, Craig, and it's in this little Cotswold town.
This is what you could expect when you listen to the middle-aged running man. I mentioned cynical and taking the piss. There we are.
It's in Broadway, Craig, but it's this lovely little Cotswold town or village or whatever it is, and they do a half marathon there, but it's like none of it really is on roads. It's like a trail half marathon. Well, they do a half marathon and a marathon, and I've done both. I did the marathon last year, and again at the end of it, I just thought I think I'd enjoy this a lot more if I did half as much. So I'm doing the half this year, and that's run. Usually sells out quite quickly. I do a video of that every year, and that's run by these fabulous guys called Cotswold Trail Events, run by Ian and Emma, who also looked after me at the Cotswold Century Way. It's a really, really good race, that one. They sells out every year. It's a great race.
No, I mean, if I'd have thought quick enough, then I'd have said I was just asking that question for our American and world audience, but it wasn't. Stupid.
Rumbled.
Yeah, that's it. People in Chicago have no idea where that is. We need to let you know.
If you put some pictures of the village of Broadway and the Cotswolds up at some stage anywhere, they will wet themselves, because, like, honestly, Broadway is what most Americans think England looks like.
Yeah. I'm doing a race which I don't know if you've ever heard of. It's a bit of a crazy one. It's called the Dovedale Dash. It's 4 3/4 miles. It's completely insane. And the countryside again. It's very English looking countryside in a stereotypical way. Just beautiful place. But
it's fab. Stepping stones at Dovedale. That's the place, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
There was a fight there in the summer, apparently. I read that.
Oh, really?
Online. Yeah, wow. It was a fight. People fought over the stepping stones. Wouldn't believe it, would you? Yeah.
No, I hope that doesn't happen.
Genuinely, someone tried to take a double buggy across these stones that crossed that river, and there was a scrap. So there you go.
Because somebody else didn't like the idea of a double buggy
going across. Took exception to a double buggy crossing some medieval stepping stones, and there was a ruck in the dale.
Wow. Well, do you know what, Tim? That was one thing that wasn't on my bingo card for today's chat. But I'm glad we visited it. And folks, make sure you go and Google that story and find out about the great Dovedale scrap.
Dovedale scrap. Yeah.
What is next then? We've said what races are next. What's next for the YouTube channel? More of the same? I mean, are you looking to do? You've mentioned a lot of races there. Will there be an accompanying video for every one of them?
Yeah, I'm not very creative at all, Craig. So essentially, I book races so that I can make videos of them, and then doing the videos gives me an excuse to put the. Yeah, so I book races to run them for my own fun and enjoyment, but they're great. They're ready-made for content then. I'm probably not that good when I'm not racing at thinking of little, sort of formats for videos. So Now I'm starting to watch a lot of other YouTubers, and they kind of do. So if they're running for a race, they'll do, I don't know, 6-7 weeks of videos of a training block, for example. So I watched the Forester Dean runner the other day. He was doing this training block for Abingdon half marathon, and now he's really good. He knows loads about running. He talks exactly about what trainers he's wearing, and his pacing and all that sort of stuff. It's really interesting. I'm not that good at that. I just kind of go from one race to another race to another race, partly just because I lack confidence really talking about running at that level. So, but when you asked me about what's next, I was thinking this, and I'm thinking, right, well, what am I going to... 2024 has been really busy, and I've been really chuffed because the channel's grown quite a lot this year. And so that's been amazing. But I was thinking, right, what am I going to do in 2025? And I can't really think of anything. And equally, I don't know if anyone who watches my channel is watching this. I kind of, almost want to ask, like, which bits are getting kind of tired and stale? Which bits do you still like? What would you like to see me do? So I kind of, I could do with a bit of help, really, to be honest with you, because I can't think of anything other than doing exactly the same thing, which is just turn up to races, being sarcastic, talking in the car, and then going home.
Yeah, and is the thought of it? Oh, I do this. It's a sideline. It's a hobby. It's something I enjoy doing alongside the running. Or is there any sort of thought? I wonder how big this could get. Could I monetize this? Could I make something more out of this? Could we have Mom TV? I don't know.
Wouldn't that be something? Could you imagine? Honestly, I don't know. I'd be lying if I said, like, I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't pictured, God, Mom TV, Momcast. I mean, that'd be classic. It'd be great for me. I'm not sure it'd be good for anybody else. But I mean, look, I never thought, like 2 or 3 years ago when I did that first video, that I'd end up talking, the fact that I'd be talking to you and doing this, like, how exciting. So loads of different things have come up. So look, there's no real plan for it at all. But I guess, I don't know, but I really enjoy doing it. I really enjoy doing it, and I would be absolutely lying to you if I didn't love reading people's comments, because they're generally really positive. And I'd be lying if I said that wasn't like a real boost to my self-esteem. I love it. It's absolutely great.
No. I love the channel. I think it's really cool with all the different races that you go to as well. And I mean, as much as anything else, it gives people ideas of different races to go to as well. So that's always pretty cool. When it comes to your own running, and I guess just going back to the start of the story and you starting doing that running, presumably you'd encourage anybody else who was in a similar situation that you were, looking to get a little bit fitter, looking to get out there, get a bit of headspace, that running is the thing that they need to be doing.
Yes, and I strike a really uneasy balance sometimes between being like a running nose. I mean, I think, to be honest, people at work have already worked out now, like, if you want to lose half an hour of your life, go and talk to them about running, because you're not going to get away. I will talk about it for ages. So, but equally, I'm aware of the fact that sometimes people can talk to you about running out of politeness and are just, but aren't that interested. And you have to be a little bit careful sometimes with, like forcing your own beliefs down people's throat. Like, it's done a lot for me, of course it has, and I'm absolutely obsessed. And I could, as I am doing, could talk non-stop to you about it. But equally, like, just because that necessarily mean that it's going to work for everybody, and me walking up to someone, I know what you've got to do. You've got to do this, and come out with me. And people have kind of got to find that for themselves, really, I think. Although when anyone comes to me and says, I've been running, I'm all over them. I'm like, keep at it, do this next and do this next. And so, look, obviously, I'd absolutely encourage it. I mean, my wife has started running over the last couple of years. She does counts to 5K, but she is like a really private runner. She just wants to kind of go on her own with her own music. She runs when no one else is about. She doesn't focus too much on time. but she just does it just to make herself feel better and clear her head and all that sort of stuff. But she's done it. But I try not to get too involved in her running at all, because she doesn't really want. It's a private thing. She doesn't want to talk about it, which is cool. So yeah, of course, I would encourage people, but you have got to be careful that you don't kind of force your own obsession down people's throats, really.
Yeah, and I guess it comes back to what we were saying earlier about it's got to be fun. People have got to enjoy it. If for you, yeah, maybe you need to get a bit fitter, you need to get a bit of headspace, you need to do whatever, you need to find a hobby, but you absolutely hate the idea of putting your trainers on and going out in the rain or whatever, then that's not for you. Find something else. Go, I don't know, go to the gym, do a poetry class, whatever. I suppose it's all about finding your thing. And if your thing's running and you enjoy it, then yeah, love it.
Yeah. And that's, that's the one thing from going to park runs and stuff that I think is great, actually, is the amount of kind of young people that do it, the amount of kids who are running around with their parents. I think it's really cool. I mean, my oldest daughter has come to a couple with me and has really enjoyed it. So I think that's great. At the school I work at as well, the sixth form, we did the solo half marathon this summer, as a kind of a fundraiser for the school's foundation, school's charity. And a lot of the kids did that, the sixth form, I say kids, sixth formers. And it was brilliant. And it was really nice to see some of the younger people who are probably quite physically fit and go to the gym quite a lot, but have never tried running before, challenge themselves like that. And a lot of the staff got involved as well. I love that. I'd really like that to become a bit of a thing. I think we're going to do Warwick as well in February, which is great. So yeah, it's a real privilege sometimes to go to some of these events. And I know Run Through do a lot of kids races, and I think a lot of the race events companies are kind of catching on to this. You even have people running with dogs now at certain races as well. It's people have been quite funny about it.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested in what you're saying about the school kids and so on there, and them getting into running, because I've spoken to plenty of people on this podcast, and they'll talk about running at school as it was the punishment. It was the thing you might have done at best to get fit for other sports, and generally it was like, if you're at school, you just got put off running. The best you could do was like maybe hope you could skip off around the corner when the cross country happened. Has that? I mean, I know you're probably only able to talk about the one school, but do you think that's changed, or that's still the case?
It's really weird, because the kids at school these days, I mean, I can only really talk from my own experience. The kids at school who are really talented, kind of like track athletes, are very often kids whose maybe parents have separately encouraged that, and they run for clubs already, And when they come into school, they're very often they're kind of already good runners. They're already being trained outside of school. The idea about cross country, I completely agree with you, Craig. When I was at school, like cross country was something that you hated. You kind of did in all weathers. I mean, I went to school in the 80s, so they just kind of sent you into the town. There was no safeguarding. There was no, the teacher didn't even bother following you on a bike. He'd just go back into his office and kind of come out about an hour later, and you were expected to go miles, But these days we're a little bit more careful, and I'm quite lucky. The school I'm at has got really big grounds, but not all schools are that lucky. So that element of long distance running, I don't think is probably might have been slightly unfair. I don't think it's as prevalent in all schools now. I think a lot of schools focus on during the PE lessons, they'll do the main sports like football and netball and all those sorts of things. And then when it comes to running, I think it's very often athletics that people do more. The idea of kind of like long distance cross country running, I think is not something that's maybe necessarily that popular. Although the school does it. There's a very small, bigger group of kids that do meets, but and cross country events, but not quite as widely as I remember it in the 80s. I remember you'd have to do it most weeks when you're in the winter. It was hideously cruel.
Yeah, like you say, it's a good way for the teacher to sneak off in the staff room and have a
Yeah,
scotch with a flag or something.
yeah. Well, you'd be lucky. You might find one of them might come out in their car and
Yeah.
just kind of like shout stuff at you out of a window, call you something really politically incorrect, and then drive back. But that's probably about as much as you get. Yeah, absolutely. I can remember those days. Horrendous.
Yeah, definitely. Just quickly, as we're getting towards the end, I always promise my co-hosts and good friends Joe Harden and Om Gandhi that they run the What's in Your Earbuds podcast on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, and that's all about what they listen to when they're out running, and they've got a playlist on Spotify, so folks go and listen to that as well. Are you a music listener while you're out, and what tunes should people be listening to?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a real personal thing, this, isn't it? Some people are really anti it. I've always done it, and I used to sort of have different playlists for different races and all that sort of thing. But, you know, you've got your classics, you've got the songs that kind of always can see you home. You know, you've got, you know, like Lose Yourself by Eminem. You know, that's always one for when you're flagging. But these days, because I share a Spotify account at home, don't judge me with this. I listen to Taylor Swift quite a lot now because the kids are always listening to Taylor Swift at home. And sometimes if I don't forget to turn off my mobile data on Spotify, very often I can be doing a race, you know, I'm listening to Eminem, and then all of a sudden someone changes it in their bedroom at home 100 miles away and Taylor Swift's coming on. So now I've just kind of thrown in the towel and just joined and just listened to Taylor Swift all the way around. That's not like a habit. That's just something that's started to happen. But, you know, there's a lot to be said for Shake It Off. And I can do all of them, to be honest, Craig. I could tell you, I could do every album. But yeah, so Taylor is guiding me home at the moment.
Oh, fantastic! Well, I'm not a Swiftie myself, but I know that, or I believe that certain Taylor Swift songs have made it onto the What's in Your Earbuds Everyday Athlete Podcast Network playlist on Spotify. So yeah, there are other people out there. Jason, who's producing, is saying there are lots of Taylor Swift songs on the playlist. So yeah, you are not on your own when you're out there listening to Taylor cheering you home in her own extremely famous way.
Well, it's a bit embarrassing because those open ear headphones, you can kind of, everyone else, if you're in the start pen, everyone else can pretty well hear what you're listening to. And yeah, you know, like we are never ever getting back together, and I've got this sort of like game face on, just looking like this, and everyone can hear what I'm listening to. But you know, you've got to be proud of these things.
Oh, absolutely. Embrace it all the way. Right, we are running out of time, sadly, but I just wanted to give you a quick chance to shout out where people can find out all about the Middle-Aged Running Man and the YouTube channel and all that sort of thing.
All right, well, I'm completely unprepared. Earlier, Jason asked me like what my Instagram handle was. I haven't got a clue. Right, and I had to look at it to work it out. And do you know what my Instagram handle was? At Middle-Aged Running Man, which I'd completely forgotten. So look, yeah, the channel is called Middle-Aged Running Man. Just search it up on YouTube. It is there. I would be delighted if you would come across and join the Marmy Army. I kind of post probably once a week. I upload a new video once a week. They're usually, I don't know, between 12, 13, 14 minutes long. They're usually not that long. And it's usually from a different race every week. I've got an Instagram, which is called at Middle-Aged Running Man. And there is a Facebook group as well, which I've been really delighted with because lots of people have joined that, and it gives them the chance to kind of post things. They post about their own races. They post about like with their own medal Monday and all that sort of stuff. So that's been really good. And but primarily it's the YouTube channel Middle-Aged Running Man, and there is like a logo that just says Marm on it with a man holding a camera. That should give it away.
Fantastic. Tim, thank you so much, folks. Go and check out Tim's channel. Thank you for joining us today on the Running Tales podcast on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. It's been an absolute delight. I really love the channel. Folks, go, as I say, go and check it out. And if you like it, give lots of likes to that. So Tim can get more than those 6 or 8 likes he originally got. He can add to those 3,500 subscribers.
Please.
And if you like what we do today on the Running Tales podcast and elsewhere, check out all our previous episodes. Check out the other episodes on on the network. Loads and loads of really good stuff. We're growing every week, and it's a fantastic little network. I love the other shows that we do. So hopefully you will too. So yeah, please go and check them out. Give us all those lovely likes and keep us growing. And thank you so much for joining me and Tim today to discuss all about running and the Marmy Army.